right down the line. Whoa. I think we lost somebody.
Yeah. He was the one that sent me a message saying he wouldn't be able to participate, so I'm not sure.
All right. So we're ready to go then?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. I am going to share. All right. Well, welcome everybody to the first of our workshops for LP contributors. This was one of the more highly requested ones, so here I am chatting with you folks. This is about how a project is started and specifically how we at Liquipedia approach projects and new features. My name is Rado, aka Nidra. I've been in esports for 16 years now, and I've been with Team Liquid for almost 6 as well. I've been working as the product owner, project manager of Liquipedia for almost all of this time, and these days I'm kind of like more in a product owner role, working towards like a senior PO as well. So I actually have like a lot of insights about how things are executed in Liquipedia, including what challenges we had in the past and how we've solved them today and how we are actually approaching the development of the product as of now. So the way we're going to do this workshop is we're kind of going to have it like a couple of modules. So we're going to look at the stages of project management up until the execution phase. So up until you actually have to work with developers and designers to start building your project. So it's about prioritizing the project, planning it, initiating it, and then planning it. The way we're going to go about each module is we'll first learn a couple of like project management and product ownership fundamentals, and I'll be using real Wikipedia examples. So I don't like just talking about like raw theory or like anything you could read in a book, in an article. I think anybody can do this on their own. I want to tell you guys like this is what actually happens on Wikipedia product development day to day. Figured this would be more interesting for the audience here because you also develop Liquipedia on the day-to-day basis. After we do a couple of minutes of learning, we'll split in groups and do a couple of exercises that, again, have to do with direct project management. And also these would be tasks that, again, the product team in Liquipedia does on the daily. And then once in a while, we'll have like a break for Q&A. I don't know how we want to do it. Initially, we planned it like a Q&A session in the middle of the workshop and a Q&A session in the end of the workshop. We can do it this way, or if you guys prefer to kind of like answer questions on the go, we can do it after every module, or as I keep talking. I don't mind. I'll leave it to the lovely Lisa here to kind of like moderate and drive the discussions, so I can focus kind of like on the presentation. This is before we begin, this is like a throwback to a really nice time of the Liquipedia team when none of us knew fuck all about project manager. This was like a wide-eyed, smiling people that just built stuff to build stuff, and we didn't really know how to approach anything back then. This is, I think, like a 3 years old photo. A lot of people have moved on since, other people have stayed, obviously, thankfully. But yeah, we are, I have to say, we are a much more experienced team nowadays, and it's largely because of like how we learned how to do process and how to approach projects and features the correct way, I would say. So in terms of project management, there are 3 major questions that kind of like guide any sort of project or any new feature or any new product. And these are kind of like the most important things. If I have to put like project management succinctly, these 3 questions would kind of answer it. And these 3 questions, in my opinion, it's very important that they are addressed in the correct order, and you will see why. So before you begin building anything, any feature, app, website, whatever the fuck, you need to figure out why you're building something. We should not build something just to keep busy or just to build a project for the sake of it. Every project needs its purpose, a need or a problem that it's solving. This is in fact the most important question you should be asking before you endeavor into anything, like be it the project or actual something in real life. And this is a question that your bosses and your team will be asking a lot, and you need to be able to answer it. A lot of new project managers kind of like forgo this question or forget about it, and then they get stuck on the last question, and we'll get to it later. But it's very important, like the why, put it somewhere in sticky ball, or like stick it out when you measure the project. You always need to know the reason why you're building something. After the why, you need to answer the what. What do you want to accomplish with this project? What betterment do you want to leave in the world, in the scene, in your industry, whatever the hell? What are your goals with this project? This is also something that stakeholders usually are interested in. Like, oh, are we going to get more money out of this project? Are we going to get more users out of this project? Are we going to get better user retention out of this project? You need to know what do you want to accomplish. And finally, the third, and I would say the least significant question, is the how. As in, how do we get there? What steps and milestones do we need to do along the way to achieve our goal and accomplish our purpose? Now, as I say, don't overdo it or overthink this this point of the question. This is usually the young PM's mistake. They would start trying to figure out how they're going to do something. How are we going to do localization in the app? How are we going to build this website, without asking, like, why are we building this website? What is the purpose? And what do we want to accomplish? The backwards kind of like thinking can actually lead a lot of problems when you're working on a project, especially with your team. And this, as I said, I'm going to use a lot of actual examples from Wikipedia's history. But this happened to me in my young days as a project manager, right? I wanted to build a notification system in the Liquipedia app. And I tried to convince my team that we need it, but I couldn't really explain them why I wanted a notification system. I knew it was going to be good, but I couldn't really tell them why. At the same time, my team fucking hated notification system. Just as users, they hated notifications. They annoyed them all the time. They had bad notification experience with their regular phone apps. So they were really adverse of building it. Eventually, we did build a notification system, as you know, but if I could go back in time, I would actually approach it with the correct order of questions. So, for example, I know, having talked to a lot of people and having worked in esports, and in fact, working for an esports team, I knew that there was a problem or a need, that being that esports having like something going on 24/7 in all parts of the world, it could be difficult, especially if you're like a busy esport fan, to know what's going on at the same time. People would miss tournaments, people would miss matches, people would even miss their favorite teams when they're playing. In fact, in Team Liquid Slack, you see this question all the time. You have Team Liquid employees and super fans that they wouldn't know when is the Dota team playing next, when is the Counter-Strike team playing next. So now that we know this problem, we could set up a goal. Okay, our goal, we could say that we want to help fans to never miss a match they care about, or never miss a moment that will shape esports history, right? So now we know our why, and now we know our what. And then with these two things now known, we can say, okay, let's make a plan, let's make a how-to. How do we achieve this? Well, first, let's build a notification system that would easily ping people with reminders like, hey, your match is starting, hey, your tournament is starting. And you know what? After we build this, let's work towards doing live match widget on OS phone screens or something like this, or maybe do even a notification system on the website. This is how we want to do things, instead of starting from the end. It's like, hey, let's build a notification system. Yeah, but why are we building the notification system? Nobody really knows. If you know the why and if you know the what, you will be able to craft like a convincing story that will get the stakeholders on board with your idea, as well as your team. And from that point on, everything kind of like becomes easier for you and your team. But anyways, now that we're done with kind of like the three questions that you should keep in mind, I want to go into, there's a question, is it? No?
No, it was me.
Okay, yeah.
I was just saying that if people have questions, they can raise their hand. And
yeah, absolutely.
After each one.
This way. Yeah, if I'm kind of like rushing through these a bit, I apologize. Our plan is to kind of like, hey, let's get everything in the 2 hours. So the presentation part might be a bit quicker, but don't worry. The slides and documentation I'll share with you after the workshop have a lot more comments and information in them, so you can go back and kind of like read or get informed about topics that might interest you. Anyways, so before you actually start asking all of these questions like the why and the what's and the hows, you need to figure out as PMs, what do we actually work on next? In any product, in any company, this is kind of like the question that's being asked all the time. Like, what is the next project that we're picking up? This is not usually like a job for the project managers in general, technically, if you look at like job descriptions, but it's a really nice skill to have because prioritization techniques are used everywhere. Like even within a project, you might be using prioritization techniques to figure out what features do we want to build for that project. Like, do we need those notifications, or we need localization, or do we need these modules, or do we need standardization, or do we need view these streams, whatever, right? You will have a large backlog of ideas that you would need to prioritize. Sorry. So yeah, basically, again, real life example of Liquipedia. We have a project backlog that is created by everybody having their own thoughts and ideas about where Liquipedia should go and what kind of project should be built. The business department comes to us and says, hey, you need to build a premium features for the app and web so we can make more money. Then the users come and say, hey, we want to have dark mode, or we want to have localization in Chinese, or we want to have a chess wiki because, hey, Formula One wiki is awesome. Or maybe you guys as contributors have ideas like, hey, let's standardize this wiki to make our life easier, or let's redesign this module, or let's include this feature on that wiki. Over time, you will get a lot of ideas, and you will get this like huge and growing backlog. And in my experience, usually backlogs grow faster than you can clear them. So over time, you will become swamped in projects and ideas, and you need a good way to kind of like distinguish which one is the most important right now, today. Where do we spend our resources and money and time and effort? Now, it's important because you cannot also do everything, right? That's a luxury that's utopian. It doesn't exist. It's not real. You need to, at any point of time, you need to pick your battles. Even if you have technically infinite resources and people, doing too many projects at the same time is still not a good idea, because you want to focus your attention on a couple of things. You want to you want to be laser focused. You want to be concentrated on it. You need to know how to achieve your goals and accomplish the purpose of that project. If your mind is split across 15 different projects, you won't even be able to do it, even if you had all of the time and money in the world. Now, there are countless methodologies to prioritize work, and if you Google like prioritization tools on Google, you will get like a fuck ton of articles. Pick your poison, right? I'm not gonna stay too long on this one. Maybe you've seen the Eisenhower matrix, which does importance versus urgency and splits things into 4 categories. Similar to it is the lean matrix, which does the same with like value versus effort. There's something called the Kano model. It's not that Kano. It has nothing to do with it. But all of these things kind of like do the same purpose. Like, what is the most important thing? What do we need to work on? They all kind of like aim to answer the same question. They just use different techniques. Now, on Liquipedia, in particular, we use something called Weightest Shortest Job First, or WSJF. This is a very popular tool to rank almost anything. You can run projects, you can rank features within a project, you can run basically anything, because it's a very, very simple formula that doesn't really bog you down into like too much subjectivity, right? It tries to be as accurate as you can get into kind of like prioritizing projects. WSJF uses a total of 4 values put into this, like, as you see, very simple formula. You have your user business value, which is exactly what it sounds like. The more value does the project bring to the business side or the user side of the product, the higher the value is. There's time criticality, which is, again, very self-explanatory. If it's urgent, the value is higher. If you can wait a bit, the value is lower. There's the third one called risk reduction or opportunity enablement, which is a bit more nebulous. People get confused about it, but essentially it asks the question like, does this project enable us to do more in the future, or does this project reduce certain amount of risks right now? Often you will see things like code refactoring or server updates and migrations kind of like have high values here because, well, they make your code secure, make your platform maybe have like higher uptime, etc. And then you add all of these together and you divide it by the job size. And again, job size, very intuitive. The more complex and the more unknowns there are around the project or the feature, the higher the job size is. Now, there are obviously like pros and cons to WSJF, and I've linked them as comments here. If you want me to go through them, raise your hands. I will go through them. But for now, this will do. This is a very, very simple exercise that we're going to do now. And in fact, we're going to look at a spreadsheet and we're going to do our own WSJF exercises. Again, this is something that the Liquipedia team does about once a month. We get together, we look at a project, and we try to estimate them and rank them according to their importance right now. So this is what a simple WSJF list of project looks like. And in fact, this is, I think, almost verbatim taken from our ClickUp backlog of items. These are, as you will see, real projects on Liquipedia. Maybe I should even zoom in a bit because it's a bit hard to read. Let's say. Yeah, these are absolutely real projects on Liquipedia, projects that we've worked on and completed, or projects that we are about to endeavor on. In each project, I've given it a name and a synopsis, which is, as we said, the why of the project. Why is this even here? What is the reason for it? For each of them, as you can see, we can assign business or user value, time criticality, risk reduction opportunity enablement, and then job size. We fill these white boxes, the gray ones we don't touch, they are automatically connected. For each project, I've given you some notes that will help with your estimations. So feel free to read them, feel free to use them to inform your estimations. So how are we going to do this exercise? I'm going to link this document in Discord. There we go. Your job is to, once you split into groups, make a copy of the spreadsheet and give it a name, right? It could be your group's name, it could be your whatever you want. Then read the projects and their synopsis to kind of like understand what these projects are. If you want to add your own project, which I think would be super cool, please do so. Maybe you're working something on Liquipedia yourselves. Maybe you want to give it an WSJF estimation. If you want to delete all of those and completely replace them with your own project, even more awesome, right? Just know that it will take you some time and we're trying to kind of like do it in a certain time frame. After you have like your list of projects, it's time to kind of like give them estimations for each of these values. The way we do it on Liquipedia, and in fact, the way most companies do it, is with the so-called Fibonacci. The Fibonacci numbers, or rather the modified Fibonacci numbers, are very common in software development. So if any of you are working as programmers or have experience in this, you probably have used it in things like Scrum Poker. But essentially, the numbers go from 1, which is the lowest value, go up to the 20, which is the highest value. Again, this is what we use for Liquipedia. They can go to 100, 400, whatever. Doesn't really matter. And one thing you have to also remember is that these numbers, these estimates you give them, they are in relationship to each other. So for example, if you see that a project has a value of 1, and then you consider the other project to be 5 times as more value, that you would assign it a 5. These are not absolute numbers. They are, shouldn't it be 21? Yeah, that's why it's called modified Fibonacci. It's 20. And I think it's also, there are a couple of other numbers in along the spiral that are kind of like modified. But yeah, usually it goes 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 20. I think then it's 40, 100, and 400. Usually if you go like super bad. But yeah, if you talking technical Fibonacci, it should be, I think, 21 and 8. So yeah, then after you spend some time discussing and assigning values to these projects, in terms of and calculating the WSJF rank, just manually rank them from the highest rank to the lowest rank. This is what, again, the Liquipedia backlog of project will look like. After you've done this, then you as a group can select a project. It doesn't have to be the highest project, the top one. It could be something the second, third position, or maybe even something down the middle. Your job would basically, however, once you're presenting or once you pick this project, should be to defend it. Why are we doing this project now? Is it because it's easy? Is it because it's fast? Is it because there's a lot of value? Is it because it is indeed a higher rank? Whichever group we select to present needs to explain, like, yes, this is the project that we as a team, as a fictional Liquipedia team, will be working on next. And in fact, you will use this project for the other two exercises of this project. So for example, let's say the group one decides to do Mobile Legends Bang Bang match details pages. They need to explain why they're doing it. So for example, it would be good because ESWC and Worlds is in June, right? So that would be great addition to the MLBB community, right? After you've selected MLBB, you will be doing exercise with the MLBB match pages further into the workshop. Now, before we begin, any questions so far? Anything that is not clear? Anything that I need to further explain to help you do this exercise? All right, I guess not then. Elisa, how do we have the groups ready?
Yeah, I'm trying to do the breakout rooms here. Trying to understand it for now. A new, but I think we do. Does anyone know how I just break the rooms? Because I have them ready, but
Sam, go ahead.
It's just to make sure, like a low number on like business reduced value or time criticality means that it is not as important, because I got a bit lost.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
For example, if the number, for example, on time criticality is 1, does it mean that it is not really critical or
yeah,
really?
Exactly. Like the lower the number, the less important the project is in terms of this value. So indeed, yes, time criticality of 1 means, yeah, we can do it whenever, right? Here you see a calendar of major tournaments for internal use. Well, it's internal use, so we don't need it immediately. Okay, let's give it a 1. But something that might be like 13, it's like, holy shit, we need to get this quickly because something is going on. Indeed, yes.
Okay, thanks.
How do you break people into groups? I have no fucking idea.
Yeah, it's not showing the icon for me that's supposed to be showing up. Supposed to have a activities button.
Maybe it's because everybody's not from Liquid and they're like external.
No, because I already divided them on the event.
The host can assign people to rec rooms. You don't see it? I see it. Like if you click the square, triangle, whatever icon down right, you can do breakout rooms, and then you split it to smaller group discussions. While Elisa does that, I'll basically give you like a final kind of like help. So after every exercise, I will also give you a completed version by me of these lists and these documents, right? I will also link them as you're doing them in the exercise, for those groups that might get stuck or need a little bit of help. So I'll give you a cheat sheet. Again, ideally don't use it if you can avoid it, but if you get really stuck and you have like no fucking idea, you can open it and see how I would prioritize in all of these projects. Also remember that whatever values you assign, there's no right or wrong value. So if you assign 5 to esports rankings for time criticality and another group assigns them a 3, one is not more correct than the other. Maybe the other group has different ideas and different arguments why something is ranked higher or lower than anything else. Again, imagine that you're a real Liquipedia team. Imagine that you are tasked with ranking all of these projects today. Once I imagine I'm your product lead and ask you, hey, group 1, why do you have Valorant match pages on the top? You would need to explain why that is the case.
I have the rooms. Do you think 10 minutes, 15 minutes?
I think let's do 15 minutes. And if any group is ready, they're free to jump back into the main room.
Okay.
So if everybody finishes earlier, then so be it. And if you need more time, also works, I guess. Maybe let's do 20 minutes just to give the groups a bit more time. And then if somebody finishes earlier, we'll reconvene here.
Cool. Sounds good. Okay, I'll start the groups. If you have any questions, just go ahead.
Fantastic.
Hey guys, welcome back.
Welcome back.
You had enough time?
Again. Yes, I think we said basically.
Awesome. All right. So the way we're gonna proceed with this is that we will have both groups present their WSJF rank. They will explain which project they are gonna be working on next as a team, which one they're prioritizing. I might ask you a couple of questions, kind of like pretending that I'm your product lead and why did you pick this and not that, whatever. So after both groups present, we'll continue with the workshop. We'll do 2 more exercises for the workshop. At the second exercise, we won't be presenting, but at the end of the 3rd exercise, again, both groups will present, and we encourage you to change whoever talks from the group and who presents, just to get more people, more exposure. So group 1, whoever is going to be your leader, your project management, whatever, please feel free to share your rank with the group to the screen, and then we can go through it. Who's going to be the master? Okay. Awesome. I only struggle to see the actual project name. So if you can scroll out to the left, I think that would be great. Okay. Sweet. Hit me. So I am your product owner. I go like, okay, what did your group decide? Good, you have it ranked. You haven't really ranked it. So
I mean, we can.
Yeah. You can just sort it quickly so that.
I mean, it's. You can see it. Yeah, 1, 2.
Yeah, you can see. Okay, so your number 1 is the calendar of major tournaments, and then you have this.
I mean, it's only number 1 because it's so simple to do. It's like a do it in between task, I would say. Like, I wouldn't actually start with this one, even if it has the highest rank, because actually it's like when someone has some time in between, you can just do this. I mean, it's just query all the wikis and predefine some conditions you want to have, and then you get the list you want.
It's pretty much, yeah. Okay, so yeah, I am fine with this. Like as a product lead, yeah, that sounds good. So what are you actually gonna pick up, or are you gonna focus on really as a true project?
I mean, the highest value would be the brackets on the mobile app.
Okay.
I think it has a relatively high impact for users, and it's wanted, which is also increasing the time criticality. And it also enables us possibly to add better and more features to the app later on, I think, or we think.
Okay, fair enough. Do you really think it enables more things than a design system?
No, but here you wrote that the project doesn't include implementation, so.
Okay, fair enough.
If I have a design system and don't implement it.
Fair enough. I would have maybe done it a bit different, but I see your point. Okay, so
if the sentence here like this project does not include implementation would have been then in my opinion at least this one would have been the one, but yeah.
This is a very programmer's way of thinking, but
of course I am.
It's definitely valid. I've conversed with a lot of developers to know that. Well, that's what you said, so this is what I'm doing. Fair enough. I have another question, right? So so let's say the mobile app brackets are your thing. I see job size 20 for MLBP match pages, and I'm going like, there's no way this is bigger. Okay, so yes, there's an API needed, but we've implemented APIs before, right? So holy shit, a 20, you basically says that it will take 4 times as much.
Do they even have to an API that we can use?
Yes, there is. There is
Yes?
a
Okay,
available.
okay.
There is. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, then 20 is too high.
Yeah, so this is what I would basically say is like, yeah, guys, I don't think that's even higher, but there is somebody writing. Frank is asking for an available admin Discord for an editor. Maybe you can get someone to help him. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so the LP app brackets is your project. Good. You know what you're doing. Time criticality. Why is your time criticality so high? It's more critical than everything else. Why do you consider this project so critical?
Because the others wanted it to be this high.
For example, here I would say is like, okay, but we have functioning brackets, right? I mean, they're shit, but you can still find the information there. It's not something that we have to do in the next month or so, is it?
Yeah, I would agree, but
again, no right or wrong answers, right? Again, sometimes a product lead will ask you a question and you go like, oh yeah, you're correct. Sometimes you'll have good defense, like the design system. Well, if it's only design, it's not that big, is it? Yeah, fair enough. It doesn't enable that much, right? It only enables the design system implementation. It doesn't enable anything else. If it was an implementation, yes, you would be right. It would be even higher. Okay, good. This is your project for the rest of the workshop. Group 2, let's see your damage. Let's see where you got. Who's presenting?
Yeah, I will present our findings.
Alrighty.
So we have the same end result as Group 1, with the brackets being the highest ranked, just before the calendar with the major tournaments.
Okay. Fair enough. You actually got pretty close to what I have, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so are you also going to be working on the brackets for the mobile app as your project, or do you want to pick something else? Remember, so the way you should use the WSGF rank or any other prioritization system is only as like a soft guideline and advisory tool, right? You shouldn't really blindly follow it. There will be people that tell you, oh, just pick the one on the top, no negotiations. That's never a good idea. Fucking never a good idea. There might be a lot of unknowns, blockers, whatever the hell. For example, here you see, well, the mobile app, oh, it's top, right? So we should work on this immediately. Well, maybe, but then again, you have the calendar of tournaments that is much smaller project. So why not do that first, as for example, HGP said. But anyways, not to interrupt you, is that what you're going to be working on, the updated brackets?
Yeah, we will also work on the brackets.
Okay, everybody wants good brackets, and trust me, we wanted this as well when we were working on them. We hated them so much. Oh my god. Okay, let's see if I have other questions. All right. Okay, battle royales. So battle royales, for the app, you rank them very highly in terms of job size. And you rank them very high as, I assume, opportunity enablement, right? This doesn't really reduce any risk. In fact, it introduces risk, right?
Yeah.
So
we thought it would be very difficult to work on because it already exists, but without the needing features. So everything we have to touch has the potential to break everything that already exists. Okay. So this will probably a monster project, and but once we have it implemented, we have a lot of opportunity to go from there because we have a solid foundation.
Yeah, like your product could say, oh yeah, Apex is really big in certain Asian countries. PUBG and PUBG Mobile, huge in India, right? We can tap like these markets that we can't really do. We can't really do in the app, right, with other games, right? I would actually agree, like maybe not quite 20 for the size of the app currently, but definitely as like a future potential, it is very high. I would say that. Funny story, because like again, this is a project we've obviously completed in the app. Battle royales are now a thing in the app. in my mind, this was very high job size because I didn't understand battle royales. And then I sat with Kano for 30 minutes, and then I suddenly understood battle royales. And I can tell you the job size dropped from something like 13 to like a 5. Once we figured out, you know what? Yeah, we need to change all of the screens. That's true. That's true. But you know what you need to do? You just need to show the same fucking table in 15 different places and your job's done. So we needed literally designed for 2 tables and how to show the matches for the table. And after we figured that one, everything was just like, yeah, fell into place. It was way more difficult to design 5v5 and 1v1 and double, triple elimination brackets than it was for battle royales.
It depends on how detailed you want to show stuff.
Yeah, like, of course. We're talking like MVPs. Obviously, if you want to go super detailed, the job size.
No, not only MVP and such stuff, but also, for example, the kill points. Some wikis have them, some wikis don't.
Oh yeah.
Some wikis have call them kill points. Some wikis call them completely other shit. Some wikis sometimes have them, sometimes not.
That is true. That is true. Overall, like the complexity of the battle royale project is indeed high. Like, for example, if you factor the work that Rados does and what Jasper does with standardization and all of this, yes, it's a huge endeavor, right? But for the app, we basically said, like, you know what? Let's dumb it down. Let's call everything the same thing. If an information is missing, let's just cut it out, right? Like very, very small MVP that actually made it very quickly. I think we did Apex in maybe like 2 sprints, so like in a month. And before that, before I actually understood battle royale, it was the wiki that I dreaded the most because I didn't understand the esports in the formats. So yes, I was scared at a 20 before I began, and then I dropped it at 5. So you're actually not far off. Okay, sounds good. Let's see. Do I want to ask anything else? Okay, now you. Time critical. You put these match details pages. I think both of those groups put the criticality of the Valorant and MLBB match pages quite low. Why do you put it so low? Let's say I'm your product lead, and I'm like, well, Valorant Masters is starting in 2 weeks, isn't it? Wouldn't it be great to have Valorant pages for Valorant Masters? In fact, the question that I got asked myself from last week.
Yeah.
No idea about the time schedule of Valorant, to be honest.
Yeah. Our approach was: does it only benefit one wiki or multiple wikis? And if there is anything in the notes about something happening in the near future. So yeah, if we would have known that there is a major Valorant thingy happening in 2 weeks, we would probably have set the time criticality a bit higher than now.
I mean, you do know Liquipedia has that schedule, but
you have to care about the game.
Yes. No, this is fair, and this is also a good defense. Like, yeah, this one only benefits one wiki, where battle royales, hey, several big wikis go into the app and unlock new markets. Absolutely fair, and this is why it should have high time criticality. For example, the way I would do it, in fact, I'm going to share mine, like how I would approach things is, where is it? Just to show you guys like my approach. I'm going to zoom in a bit. Right. So I basically kind of like have the same idea as you, like, oh yeah, this is a very small thing. And I will actually do this first, because even if it's a small project, then as you say, yeah, we can do it between tasks, it gives you like a nice boost to close a project. Like, yeah, done in an afternoon. I think we did it right, Elise, or something like this.
Yeah, we did it.
It was an actual project. We actually did it between tasks. It was very easy.
It was like 3 days. I think Ratos already had like.
But we already had something.
Yeah, he already made the Python code. He only gave it to me, and I put it in the sheet.
Yeah.
So it was like 2 days getting feedback, and yeah, it's done.
Yeah. Then I look at, these are kind of like my 3 next projects, which again very similar to yours. Like we have kind of like the same idea. So the way, for example, I would do it today is I know EWC is coming in June, so let's start doing match pages. I would do match pages in kind of like a almost game agnostic as much as you can, and then add game specific details. So I'm going to start with Valorant and MLBB. And then by the time we have them And by the time EWC gets closer, we might have match pages for Rocket League or Counter-Strike or any of the big games, right? But then, for example, if we say, no, that's not really worth it, maybe somebody objects to it, yes, I would definitely pick up the brackets because they're shit. And then I would definitely look at Battle Royales to support India because, again, for the same reasons you guys listed, it's pretty good and unlocks new markets. And as you see, yeah, it was a 5 all along. It was never a 20. But you never know, until you dig in. You never know until you dig in. Good. Okay, everybody has their projects. Let's continue with the workshop. Where am I? So, first of all, any questions? This was kind of like initially plot Q&As. By the way, you can also do questions if you go to the activities on Google Meet and there's like a Q&A. You can just drop stuff there. I will answer them when they come. But so far, any questions? No? All righty. Moving on. So you've picked your project and then you go like, okay, what now? Usually you will have like an idea and a problem and nothing else. You have like a blank page for your project. This is, in my experience, the most daunting time for project managers when you're completely lost and you're staring the unknown. So maybe you're lucky and you know the need or the problem for the project, but still it's good to revisit it now and kind of like figure out what you're addressing. You need to figure out what you want to achieve. Very difficult because young PMs don't really think in terms of metrics and goals usually. They think in terms of goals like, oh yeah, that would be cool, wouldn't it? And yeah, it would be, but it's very hard to measure coolness or something like this. And you want something measurable to know whether you were successful in your project. And then again, and finally, once you know what you're building, and what you're not building, you need to figure out, okay, yeah, is it feasible though? So at this point, you'll start asking your developers questions like, hey, is that technically possible? You start asking your designer questions, can you draw this, etc. So in the project initiation phase, you do 4 tasks essentially. Number 1, define the purpose, which I said you should probably already done. Then your objectives or the goals, then the scope, which is something we haven't touched, but this is basically you're answering what are we building now for our MVP, what are we leaving for later, and what we're not touching at all. In my experience, the scope changes dynamically as the project progresses. So maybe you start with certain idea in your head about your requirements, but then as you talk to more people and you do your feasibility check, some requirements get dropped, others get included. Elisa can speak for this with her Pickham's project where her ideas got reduced due to technical limitations, unfortunately. And then finally, you need to define your stakeholders. The stakeholders is a really fancy, dumb word about who is involved, who needs to know about this project, and who's going to work on this project. Now, again, we continue with the actual examples from the app. From Liquipedia, which was a project we did in 2023. We wanted to redo our app tournament pages. We got a lot of feedback from all sorts of users that basically told us what you see on the left here is garbage. And in fact, they were right. But why was it garbage? Well, at the time, we couldn't really put the problem or the need succinctly, right? Not at the beginning, at least. We knew there was something wrong with the tournament pages, but only after we talked to people and gathered feedback did we actually identify and wrote down the problem. The problem, in fact, was that users had difficulty following the storylines and the progress of a tournament through the mobile app because it had unstructured tournament stages. For example, like all group stages would be grouped in a single massive group stage for whatever reason. And then all individual brackets would be their own stages, which confused the hell out of people. We had obtrusive bracket navigation, so people had to go back and forth a lot, change screens, and then upper bracket was on a separate screen and lower bracket was on a separate screen and middle bracket was on a separate screen. It drove people insane. It drove me insane as well. So it contributed to this clunky navigation. Sorry. And it also lacked a lack of clear match schedule. So people didn't know what match was actually going to happen next. Yeah, there was like a collection of matches, but there was no smart way of grouping it to basically tell you like web does. Today, these 5 matches are played. Tomorrow, these 5 matches are played. Okay, now we had our problems. Good. Okay, what do we want to achieve then? So we didn't want to make more money with this project, right? This project was all about making users happy and having them a better experience as they browse matches. So what did we want them to do? Okay, we want them to like the app better. So one of our objectives was to increase App Store scores from 3.6, which is the current at the time, to above 4, which we eventually did. We wanted the users, after they liked the app, we wanted them to come back to the app again. So we said, okay, we want to increase our user retention for weeks 1 and weeks 8, which are arbitrary, but this is just how we measure things, by 5% by the end of the year. So we give also people some time to get used to the new pages and all of that. And we also set another objective, which was to clean all S and A tier tournaments for the top 5 app games by the end of the year. So that as a user, if you go to TI, LCK, RLCS, you would see really clean tournament page that would not be confusing for you. These were our goals. Okay, great. Moving on. So what do we actually do? How do we actually achieve those? What are our milestones? Well, on Liquipedia, we do something called the Moscow method, which is you divide things by must-haves, could-haves, and won't-haves. So must-haves are the things that are non-negotiable and you should always include. So here we put, okay, we need to group the tournament stages to match the tournament format with the correct names and the correct split, just like web does it, because that's how people follow tournaments. We wanted to implement a clean and a simple match ticker, right? So again, we knew people like match tickers. It's a very easy way to follow the story of the tournament. Then, okay, these were 2 of our several must-haves, and you'll see it a bit later on. What is a could-have? Oh, you know what? It could be cool. Let's show individual player awards, MVPs, things like these. That would be cool. It's not essential, but it would really add to the oomph of the tournament page. But if we can't do it, fine. And won't-haves, what do we not want to do when we knew we didn't want to do tournament stats? Mostly because we didn't know what kind of tournament stats we wanted to present, and most games have their own specific needs. So we would need to find Valorant stats suitable for a tournament page, and Dota stats, and League of Legends stats, and these are all fucking different, right? And you really need experts to the game. So we felt this would slow down the whole thing a lot, so we cut it out completely. In fact, to this day, we haven't really done tournament stats. Not to say that we'll never do them, but for the longest time, we just never thought about it. And finally, okay, now we know what we're doing.
There's also an issue with tournament stats, like they're wiki specific.
Oh yeah, absolutely. All
At
sorts
least
of issues.
some of them, like on some wikis you have stats that are important there that for other wikis don't even exist or are completely irrelevant. So
exactly. Not to mention that some stats that we have on Liquipedia, I wouldn't even consider them valuable to the regular user. Yes, Tom.
Yeah, so for example, like what Andrea said is that, if I understand correctly, Dota, for example, has map hero vectors and hero picks and bans, while StarCraft has map vectors and picks.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So you need to figure out, for example, like, let's say you're building tournament stats. Let's say you want it. Let's say we wanted it for this project. You're right. Then we would get together. It's like, okay, what do we want for the MOBAs of the world? Well, we probably want something like what is the tournament meta like? The picks and bans and the most contested heroes. Maybe something like, okay, which player has the highest KDA or something like this, right? But then you go to another tournament like CS. Yeah, then it's like, yeah, which is the most banned map, which is the most played map.
But it also has KDs.
Yeah, exactly. Then you go to Rocket League. It's like, oh, another set of stats here. Who has the most goals, right? Then you wouldn't really do the most played map on Rocket League because that's just cosmetic almost, right? It doesn't make sense. You want a different set of stats. Then you go to StarCraft. Then it's a mix of maps. And then maybe you what do you want to do? Maybe like build orders? I don't know, like a race distribution, country distribution. Again, you see like how...
No, like map stats per race.
Yeah,
like
sure.
Win rates
of the
matchups.
I mean? For almost every single game or like a genre of game, you need to come up and do it, which would blow up your scope tremendously. This project, we actually needed to do it before TI began. We had, I think, like a month and a half to do it. So doing stats was off the table for fucking forever, right? In fact, even today, like when we get to looking at stats in the app, we go like, no, we'll stay away from it a bit. Maybe we'll do like a whole stats project later on, and then we'll just improve stats on this page, on that page, on players and teams. But for tournaments, no, we wouldn't even touch them.
Okay.
So yeah, we know what we're building. Great. We know the goals and objectives. Okay, who do we need to call? What is our strike team made of? Okay, so well, we're redesigning everything, so we need a lead designer. Okay, check. We need a backend developer to wrestle with LPDB and cry over non-standardized data. Okay, great. Grab him in. We need a front-end developer to implement all of the designs. Okay, get him in. We also need a community lead because remember, we need we have a goal to clean all of these pages. Well, somebody like Elisa is needed. Somebody like Heskate or Kano are needed. Bring them in as well. These are our active team. This is how we usually split it, like the active team, the one who implements the project, and then the management team, the ones that oversee and kind of like keep everything going. So you have a product owner or a project manager or one of those roles in Liquipedia. These are kind of like hybrid roles usually. And we have the Liquipedia director who is just there to be informed. Like, yeah, he gives the green lights, like, yeah, guys, you have the resources to build this, go ahead. And otherwise, he's not really involved. Cool. Any questions so far before we proceed to introducing our next exercise? No? Okay. So these are a lot of questions, a lot of points. And usually the problem with teams is that you can't really, it's difficult to get people on the same page. And people forget often what a project is about or what they're supposed to be building. Usually in projects, there's a lot of documentation being written, which is really annoying, and I hate it. So I only do documentation of what is necessary. And one document that I do consider absolutely essential is the so-called project charter. Now, the project charter is very good because it's a TLDR of the project. And we all love TLDRs because we hate reading long documentation of any kind. The project charter serves a function that you can link it to anybody who's interested in the project. And in 5 to 10 minutes, they will know everything that is to know about the project on like a fundamental level. Obviously, you don't use it to explain how you code a certain features or how you design certain pixels, but it's about exactly what do you want to achieve, what are your goals, and how are you going to get there. Project charter is obviously, again, something that we write for every project that Liquipedia does, because, again, people forget what shit is about to happen. Sometimes projects also get frozen or being put on hold for long periods of time. It really helps to have something like that lists all of the details. So when you get back to a project after like a 3-month pause or 6-month pause, you know, like, oh yeah, this is what we're doing and this is what we want to achieve. Now, in the first half of this exercise, we are going to fill this sheet. This is what it looks like. This is a project charter. In the first half of the exercise, we will do the first, 4 sections of it. Every project charter begins with a background and context, which is kind of like your project synopsis. Why are you building this? A TLDR of the project, essentially an elevator pitch. If you're locked with your product lead in an elevator, you have to explain it in 3 sentences. That's the background and the context. Then you list your objectives. Again, what do you want to achieve with this project? Now, a good way to write objectives, and in fact, it will be very appreciated by your business teams and by your leadership teams, is to make them so-called SMART goals. SMART goals is a fancy way to say that you shouldn't really write vague, badly defined goals like make users like us more, because that's not very easy to measure. Does it mean increase App Store scores by a certain amount, or does it mean getting more positive reviews, or does it mean people giving more reactions on Discord when you post a new feature? If you can't define it, then you don't know if you've been successful. A better way to write a goal is to have it measurable and specific to the project, measurable, something you can achieve, something that, and it's also something that is like time bound. So we could take this badly written goal as like make users like us more to say something like increase the App Store ratings by 0.5 within 6 months after launch, just as an example. You wouldn't write, hey, let's make more money, but we can say increase revenue by 10% by the end of Q3, something like this. So for the exercise, I want you to think about your project and define at least 2 objectives. Again, make them concise, relevant, and ideally measurable. So use these guidelines as helpers. Then we will go into the scope and deliverables. So again, your must-haves, could-haves, and want-haves. Again, these are, as always, there are no right or wrong answers. Remember, you are the project managers of this project. We are executing your vision. So if you tell me, oh, we should support, because like both of the groups pick the upper bracket revamp. If you say, you know what, we won't have spoiler-free because we don't like it and nobody's asking for spoiler-free, that is not a wrong answer. If another group puts spoiler-free as a must-have because, hey, that could be like something that the web doesn't have and it could drive more users to the app, that is also not a wrong answer. Again, you need to be able to defend your vision. This is most important, kind of like convince people why you're building certain things and why you're not building certain things. While you're thinking about scope and deliverables, a good kind of like piece of advice I can give you is that try to make it small. Really, this is counterintuitive, but the smaller your MVP is, the fewer essential features you have, the better. You don't want to build things just to blow the product, because it might turn out that nobody's even asking for the things you're building. Focus on what you know is essential, what you know is critical, what you know will help the user, and what will change their kind of like perception of the app in accordance with your goals. Don't just do an MVP of like 15 features because they would all be cool. Yeah, most of the things would be cool. In fact, if you ask users, would you like this? 90% of them will say, yeah, I want this. They will never use it, but they will say, yeah, I want it, because that's just what users do. So keep this lean. All of your cool ideas like, oh yeah, we should add this at some point, I would suggest put it in your could-haves. And if you fear that something will be very difficult or nobody's going to care about it or it's too complicated, put it in your want-haves. In fact, it's good to have a lot of want-haves and could-haves than must-haves. And finally, consider what kind of people does your project need. Just like I showed you in the app, maybe you need a designer, maybe you need a developer. If you don't know the difference between a backend developer, a front-end developer, or DevOps, whatever, just write, we need a developer, we need somebody to implement this, or a designer, or a community manager. Yes, there was a question, I think.
Can we assume that the LPTV data is already present and
assume away,
standardized?
Right? We're not making.
Or do we have to like take care of that too?
Imagine whatever reality you want, right? If it's easier to assume the current reality of Liquipedia and make your project this way, yeah, go ahead. If you want to go back in time 10 years to when LPDB was non-standardized and was like pure garbage, please include it, right? It's both very viable. In fact, when we started doing, let's say, the tournament pages, yeah.
I mean, like currently we only have the LPDB data for our Bracket Royale stuff on the wikis itself, available for a few events, for newer ones, because we only implemented it recently. So should we assume that we only do this for new wins, or do we have to also include the porting of all the old stuff to the new stuff in the scope?
Again, it's up to you to decide as project managers. The way I would advise you, if you came to me for like I have, is like, hey, focus this project mostly on traditional brackets, like player versus player or team versus team brackets. Don't do battle royale. Don't try to visualize battle royale brackets, because that's a whole another mess, right? Think about standard brackets. Think like what you would see on your StarCraft, on your Counter-Strike, on your Valorant wikis, and think about how you want to change that, improve that in the app. Again, I think I've listed some problems already with the project. So, but again, like you can imagine whatever reality you want, and then make the project reflect it. If you say, oh, you know what, let's imagine a reality where the app's brackets weren't even supported, and it only supported, let's say, single elimination brackets and nothing else, right? Then you say, oh, we need to support double elimination brackets because the app doesn't. If you want to work with an actual reality, for example, to rewind back to when we did this project, The problem was that we couldn't really support upper, lower, and middle bracket on the same screen, which made people very, very furious. Normally, we didn't support spoiler free, which people wanted, and we had issues with what was it? Yeah, I think the bracket would restart every time you switch between screens, so we can always go to the beginning of the bracket. I think these were the main ones, and also they looked fugly, so we also wanted to give them like a visual uplift, right? So, but again, you can imagine whatever reality you want for this exercise. I'll accept anything. There's no right or wrong answers. Once you do, once you finish this, we'll continue with the workshop. In exercise 3, you will see as a kind of like a teaser, we will complete the project charter, and then at the end of exercise 3, both groups will present their complete project charter. And I will also link mine at the end to see how I would feel a project. All right. Questions before we begin?
I have a question for everyone. Should we give a 5 minutes break? Are you guys okay to jump into the exercise?
My opinion is go.
Go. Yes.
What?
Will we get access to the how to do this? Like what we saw right now.
Yeah, so I will again share this link in Discord. Again, make a copy, name it, start editing it. I've given to all of these kind of like milestones. Well, not milestones, but like, what do you call them? Paragraphs, kind of like guides. So feel free to read them. They should help you figure out what you need to do there. All right. So should we do another 20 minutes?
Yeah, I was about to ask. We will hit the 2 hours in 20 minutes. Is that okay for you guys if we stay a bit longer for the workshop?
Sure. Personally, have nothing to do today, so I don't mind.
Okay, just making sure. Okay, 20 minutes. If you need more time, then we can do a bit more.
All right.
So, hey guys, welcome back.
All right. How was the exercise? Did you make a good use of the time? Was it enough?
Not really.
Not really. Okay. So we can obviously for the second part of the exercise, you will complete the charter, and that one is a bit, I think, easier and faster. So you can use the time to kind of like improve your stuff. For the third exercise, I will also link you again another cheat sheet. So if you want to speed it up or kind of like revise what you've already written, that will also help. And maybe for the third exercise, we'll just get 25 minutes, right? Maybe for some extra, because I guess nobody's really in any rush for anything. But anyways, let's move on. Right, so you have done your initiation, you've kind of like laid the basics of your project, and now it's time to do the planning, which is the thing that everybody loves, but in fact, in my experience, is ironically the least important part of any project management, which is counterintuitive, but I'll give you examples in real life why that is. For now, what you need to know is that in this step, we basically figure out how do we get to achieving our goals and fulfilling the project's purpose. That's kind of like the tasks that we need to do and how they're connected to each other. What risks does it come with all of these tasks, and how do we plan to tackle each of those risks? And finally, did we miss anything else? What other tasks do we need to do that are not necessarily connected to the project? For example, like, do we need to make a Slack channel? Do we need to open a Discord? Do we need a social media campaign or something like this? Basically, the way you do planning is kind of like very linear, or at least this is how I do it. So first, you kind of like identify your milestones. Milestones are the major progress points on the way to completion. So not individual minded tasks, but like a big chunk of work, essentially. Then once you know what you're doing, you'll start to find dependencies and relationships between them. So for example, you can actually start implementing designs without having designs first. Maybe you can't really do API implementation without securing the API from the vendor. These kind of like steps will also help you identify the bottlenecks and the areas of potential delay. For example, if you see there's a lot of blocks between milestones 2 and 3, maybe you should be careful and maybe take a bit more time and maybe more careful planning on that phase. Then you've laid all of this, and then you start thinking about risks. What could go wrong in each step and milestone and just in the project as a whole, and how to mitigate it. I will speak about this a bit later. Then finally, you would start writing kind of like a task list. So once you've identified the milestones and dependencies, you start writing tickets for the design team, for the dev team. This is already kind of like going into project execution territory, right? I would almost not make it as part of this phase, but it's kind of like a fringe task that you do. And then finally, you kind of like want to visualize your timeline in the end. Maybe you can also do this earlier on, kind of like once you're identifying milestones and dependencies. In fact, that would be a better place to do it. I don't know why I put it in the end. Usually, I just do this a bit later once the project is kind of like taken a bit more tangible shape and I'm ready to present to my stakeholders and bosses. Now, I said that planning is ironically the least important part of it, and that is because your goal for every project is to get to the doing part as quickly as you can. You shouldn't overplan it and you shouldn't overthink it, because things get fucked up all the time. Things get derailed, mistakes happen, people quit, technical dependencies come out of nowhere, something that you didn't expect happens and you need to react to it. The more planning you do, and the more complex your project is, the more noise and uncertainty you actually introduce to your own project. So actually, I found out that elaborate plannings with timelines and detailed breakdowns are mostly for the stakeholders and executive levels comfort, because it gives them the illusion that, oh yeah, everything is planned out and we have everything in control. That's rarely the case. Usually a good, you can make a laid out detailed plan for relatively small projects, something that will take you maybe like a month. But right now, again, I will use a real example. We are doing a project called Lighthouse, which is to rewrite our entire code base, and we want to decouple Liquipedia from MediaWiki, right? It's an enormous project. It's a very complex project with a lot of unknowns. So what we started doing in the beginning, just like every other novice project manager, is we started doing plans and roadmaps because that's what we are expected to do. Yes, let MediaWiki burn in hell, indeed. Fuck MediaWiki forever. So we started making these plans and like, oh, by Q1 we'll do this, in Q2 we'll do this, in Q3 do this. We've done this 3 times so far, and every single time we failed to meet our roadmaps. So this January, we sat with our lead developer on Lighthouse and said, you know what, enough of this, enough of complex planning that doesn't get you anywhere. We only lose time. Now, I promised people StarCraft metaphors, and this is my StarCraft metaphor for how you should do planning. If you're familiar with StarCraft esports or Age of Empires or Civilization or any strategy game, you know that pro players don't do plans for every single minute of their game. They maybe have a general idea of how they want to open the game or how they want to react to things. Maybe they have a more elaborate plan if they know their opponent really well, which is a good metaphor for a project that you know really well, which is usually small projects. But if you're facing like a very smart, complex opponent, if you're playing fucking Sulky in Brood War, you can't make plans for every single minute. What you should actually do to win the game is click on that SCV and send a fucking scout to figure out what the opponent is doing. You need to remove the fog of war, and no amount of planning, no amount of roadmaps, no part of scheduling will do this. In the end, you need to get in and start doing shit. Do the plans and the roadmaps, or just chasing Kolev. Yeah, I mean, good luck. But yeah, I don't have a metaphor for this. I'm certain there's like a project management metaphor for this. I'll workshop this a bit later. But yeah, do the plans as long as they can answer kind of like the basic questions and the unknowns. Don't try to plan for the unknown and for the fog of war. Just send a scout, start doing something, and discover what is needed for this project. the more you know about it, the more easier the plan becomes. So if you take something from me, that should be it. Get to the doing part. Ignore the fucking planning. Don't spend too much time on it. Now, on the milestones were kind of like our first thing, like in the project planning. And I'll be very brief here. I won't really touch on it because it's very likely that all of you have done milestones and dependency planning in your life with anything, right? If you want to plan a trip, if you want to host a party, which is my example in the next slide, you would have done milestone planning and dependencies. So let's say you want to host a cursed Thai pizza party because you hate yourself and your friends. So you have several milestones to accomplish on that way before you can host the party. You need to choose a time and place and invite your friends, then choose the menu and make it shittier by adding pear to it. Yeah, of course. Then you need to prep the place, clean your house, get rid of the pets or get more pets depending on the audience. Then you have to have the fun. That's kind of mandatory. And then finally you have to say goodbye and clean up and then see if the dogs will eat the leftovers, which they won't because it's Thai pizza. Nobody wants it. That's a project in itself in real life, and this is what you would do with real projects. So instead of choosing a time and place, it would be to select your team. Instead of choosing the menu, it would be to write your scope and do your designs. Instead of having fun, you will be working with developers. Ironically, that came out wrong. And then for the goodbye and cleanup, you close the project and hand it over to the users, right? It's almost exactly this. What is more fun is what is more actually challenging is risk management. Risk management is what people usually forget to do or don't like to do because, again, when you start thinking about risks, it starts introducing a negative energy to the rooms, like, oh, this could go wrong and that could go wrong, that could go wrong. But it's good to have a plan, even if it's not an elaborate plan, because things will go wrong. Things will go wrong with almost every single one of your projects. It might be something small, it might be something huge, but you will fuck up or something will go wrong. So you need to know how to react to it. There's usually three kind of like main ways to deal with a risk, or three methods. There's an avoidance strategy, which is like, what do we do so that to make sure that the risk doesn't happen at all? There is a reduce strategy, which is how can we reduce the likelihood or the impact of the risk? And then third and finally, you can accept the risk by saying like, yeah, fuck it. We won't do anything. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. We don't really want to worry about it. And the third one sounds like counterproductive, but it actually is done quite often because some risks are just small enough that you can actually accept and ignore. How does that look in real life? Let's say you have a project and you're building an app for an esport. Let's say CSGO or Dota, because the example that I will make is kind of like very applicable. And you have the risk that, you know what, tier B and lower competition has unreliable data. There's a lot of fake tournaments, there's a lot of match fixing, there's a lot of lack of rule books for tournaments. You can't really just you can't trust that level of competition. So maybe you consider it a risk. Maybe you think that your users will not appreciate fake tournaments and match fix tournament and all of that. So how do you deal with this risk? Well, if you want to avoid it, you can say, well, we just want to include those tournaments at all. Fuck tier B and below, right? If they're all plagued with match fixing and unreliable data, we'll just not feature in the mid app. Then this decreases the risk of happening to 0%. Great, everybody's happy. Well, kind of. You can reduce it. How can you reduce it? Well, maybe you start creating suspicious competition to make sure they're reliable. So you only feature kind of like proofread and verified tournaments, or in the app, you can de-emphasize how these tournaments are promoted. Maybe you hide them a bit. Maybe you promote S and A tier more to users. So even if there's unreliable data, users just don't see it that much and that they don't pay attention that much. And then finally, you can also say, yeah, okay, fuck it. We'll be fine. There's not a lot of huge audience for these tournaments. They're likely not going to get a lot of traffic. So let's not spend time figuring out this risk. We'll include them. And if they're bad tournaments, whatever, right? Let Valve figure them out, right? Let Valve ban them out from the competition. You just accept the risk and move on. This is what we would usually do risk, or should say layout in a project chart. You would put the risk in one column, and then you will say, okay, what is the chance of the risk happening and how impactful it would be? And then you would write, okay, what do we do if that happens? Again, as I promised, this is an actual risk table for a project we're working on, which is to do Dota 2 team rankings, hopefully coming to Liquipedia in March. True story. We have 4 risks here that can happen with a Dota 2 ranking. Well, there are more, but I couldn't fit them on the slide. There are a lot of risks with Dota 2 rankings. It's not fun. You can have fans fucking hating the rankings or disagreeing with them. What is the chance? Well, medium, right? 50-50. Dota people, Dota fans, they are very particular, right? They do not like a lot of things. Yeah, but March is the official launch. Okay, don't spoil it. So how do we mitigate the fans' disagreement? Okay, we have a strategy by let's involve the community to curate these rankings and start iterating on the model so that it becomes more accurate. So that even if when we launch, if there are people that disagree with it, there would be a relatively small amount. Second risk, maybe we face delays with Liquipedia extensions. Well, how do we deal with this? Let's start as early as possible. Let's do pair programming by matching Liquipedia developers with the model developers, so we can proceed early. So even if we face delay, it doesn't impact really the timeline of the project as much. Maybe data is missing in the API that we're using. In this case, it's the SAP API. 50-50 chance by my experience, right? Almost half of the data was missing. It actually happened. And it's a very high severity, right? If data is missing, you can't train the model, right? What happens if a matches is missing? Then you just can't run teams. So how do we do it? Yeah, we need to avoid that risk. There's no way to reduce it. So we say we make a list of needed versus acceptable versus available data, and we tell the vendor to edit, or we can proceed with the project. And then finally, we have something like, hey, data for low-tier teams might be missing on early level. Refer to my example from previous slide. We actually want to accept this risk. You know what? We say as long as the top 20 teams are accurate, that's good enough for our MVP. It's not saying we will forever accept that risk, but for now, it's good enough. So these kind of like milestones and risk is gonna take gonna be like the third and final exercise of our workshop. So you go back to your project charter. I'll share again. Go back to your project charter, and you will do the following. So what milestones do we need to do? Again, it's up to you to decide how you want to phrase those milestones. Usually I find it a good practice to not make them too granular or too vague. So for example, if you need design, you can just say, hey, design work, and this is the milestone. You don't go like design this screen and that screen and the third and the fifth screen. Same for, hey, let's implement the designs. You don't do implement that screen individually, right? If you want to do social media campaign, you just say social media campaign and not Twitter post, Facebook post, whatever. You can fill all of this in this table, and you can go as detailed as you actually want. Again, there is no right or wrong way. I've given you kind of like the most expansive this milestone table could go. This is what I would do if I know the project quite well, but that's usually not what happens often. Usually we would just do project description and maybe dependencies. Sometimes maybe we'll know the due date. Sometimes maybe we'll know the scope, but oftentimes some of these columns will just not be needed. You're free to cut out or either remove columns as you see fit. Again, use your discretion as project managers. If you just want to use what exactly I've put in here, go ahead and do it. I also would like us, once you write these milestones, I would like you to visualize it in some way. I will show you an example of how I like to do it these days, but there's actually no rule for this. The way I would like to do it usually is I like using these days the very new and dandy timeline feature for spreadsheets, which is very easy to use. Once you have your milestones, you just put deliverable, start and end date, you grab everything, and then you insert a timeline, and it will generate it automatically for you. It's the easiest way, but honestly, every other tool you want to use is fine. If you want to draw it in Paint, go ahead. If you want to draw it in Figma, go ahead. PowerPoint, Excel, whatever you feel like it. but it's good to, for example, if I'm your product lead and ask you like, okay, show me how the project will go down, I would really appreciate something like this. So for example, for the app project that I'm working on, the app tournament pages revamp, this is my timeline. I start with some wireframing and testing, then I move to designs and backend work because these are unrelated. After the designs are completed, I move to implementing them. Then after the implement, I consider this is ready for beta testing. So I spent a couple of weeks on beta testing, and then by the desired date, I am going live with it. After you're done with your milestone, where was I? Oh, there's a lot of documents already. Spend a couple of times writing the risks. You don't really need to write a lot of risks. If you write one, this is fine. If you write more, this is fine. But think about what could go wrong. You guys are all doing the apps, so maybe you can say something like, well, have you seen how many fucking weird formats are there? There are a lot. So that would be maybe one of the risks. Maybe spoiler-free is a bit of a pain because something. Maybe the data is not available for some wikis and you can't fetch a bracket. Maybe you're not supporting triple elimination for some reason. Again, think about what could go wrong and think about how you would solve it. Again, no right or wrong answers. This is just more kind of like a creative problem solving rather than a quiz. And finally, as optional, you can write some next steps. Like now that you finished, you've kind of like visualized almost the entirety of your project. What do you need to do? Here, I would write things like, hey, open a Slack channel for the project. Send an email to stakeholders, start writing tickets for developers, start writing tickets for designers, do some maybe like feasibility testing with my lead developer on whatever, right? Just anything that you think you need to do as next steps. Again, this is very optional and usually it's kind of like a living document anyways. So again, Elisa, let's do 25 minutes this time, just to give people more time to maybe like go back to the first half of their project charter, see if they want to improve anything. I will link my completed project charter as a cheat sheet, so if you get stuck, you can take a sneak peek. But again, I encourage you to solve it yourselves because that's, I find, more rewarding. Any questions before we embark? All right, no, good. Then let's spread into groups again for the final. What if we need extra time? Yeah, good question. Should we?
I mean, after 25 minutes, if we still need like extra time, we can go back to the room, I think.
Yeah, we'll resplit again. Let's try to fit in within 25 minutes, just to save everybody's time. If everybody's fine with spending a bit more time and needing a bit more, we'll accommodate. We have nowhere to be. All right. See you guys in 25.
See ya.
Exercise done, guys. Did you find enough time? Did you manage to finish? Any questions? Any confusions? No? Okay. Then let's present group one again. Elect a leader. Let them share their project charter, and let's go top to bottom. See.
Yeah, give me a few seconds.
It's you again. Nobody else volunteered. You'll be forever.
I mean, if someone else wants to talk, they can talk. But I did the sheets. Just let me finish this pull request very quick.
Okay.
Completely or just the second part?
No, let's go through all of it. Let's
okay.
Present. So you can go top to bottom, present us the background. Like imagine I am the product lead and it's the first time I'm seeing this charter. So Andy, what is going on? Why are we making the brackets? What are we hope to accomplish?
So basically we said the brackets look not so good or bad and lack several features and are hard to use or navigate and annoy users like back then. Objectives are basically to make the brackets better usable, have better design navigation, and also increase the ratings in the App Store.
Okay.
Must-haves, obviously better design. Then someone mentioned division between lower and upper brackets. Would-haves is spoiler-free, possibly map scores.
Okay.
And someone mentioned filtering stage of brackets. No idea. MVP display. I personally think it's irrelevant, but
It's good to have, right? If users want it, you'll build it.
Yeah.
So you won't have. Okay.
Won't have is more detailed scores, like half scores in CS.
Okay.
Stats, obviously, because it's a total mess. Bans and picks, because data-wise at the moment it's also it's not really standardized. Like we have several competing standards, and hence shitty to implement, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely valid. Plus, you could argue that things like scores and halves and things like that, they're more on a match level, not on a bracket level, right? So,
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, good point. All right. Cool.
I mean, MVP too.
Yeah, exactly. You basically say, I mean, you can say that, oh, we want to display the MVP of each match, like on the brackets square, right? Like the match square. But yeah, I would agree that it's definitely a could have. Okay, so who do you need? Obviously, your project manager. Good.
I mean, the first two were pre-filled, right?
Very good.
Obviously, you need a designer to design the stuff.
Sure.
Then obviously you need front-end dev to build the stuff the designer came up with as far as possible. And then likely you will need a back-end staff to prep the data so the front-end dev can use it easier, like do the LPDB fetches and possibly pass them into a format that the front-end dev wants.
Yeah, indeed. And in fact, when we were building this was exactly our team. I think we didn't have a community manager for that project, but everything else was spot on. All right. What are your milestones? What are your risks?
I mean, obviously you have to design the stuff. Before that, you obviously have to define the features.
Okay, yeah, correct.
Then you have to implement it. Before that, you have to have the design available. And then eventually you want to push it live and probably also advertise stuff.
Okay. All right.
Before that, you obviously have to have the stuff implemented and tested, and yeah.
Yeah. So here I'm your product lead and go like, okay, wait a minute before you go to the risks. So I go like, do you just want to implement it, push live immediately? Wouldn't you want to show it to the community, test it for bugs or anything like this? Are we that confident that we can push it immediately?
Possibly.
Well, you could say that, hey, Rado, I mean, we consider beta testing to be part of the implementation.
I mean, you could also argue at least it's better than the before. We can always.
Yeah, sure. Then I can start asking you, like, how long do you think design and implementation will take? Just give me a number.
Really bad at judging how long such stuff would take.
Make something up. Make something up. Again, I'm not asking for a correct answer, and this is not a real exercise. But this will be, okay, 30 days to design and 60 days to implement. Okay? And then 1 day to push live. Yeah, fair.
Yeah, I mean, and including advertisements.
Yeah, fair. I mean, it's pretty long, like 60 days of implementation, but never mind. Maybe you have a team of new developers that you just hired and they're not familiar with the code. Yep, fair enough. Okay. what are the risks? Okay, blame. Okay, break the entire app. Holy shit. Okay, low likelihood, but very high severity.
I mean, technically, that's always a risk, right?
There's always a risk.
With every change you do.
Okay. Right? Make brackets even worse. What do you mean by that?
I mean, you can always do stuff. It can always make things worse.
Sure, but how do you know if you've made the brackets worse?
They're just not. They are less usable than before. They look even worse.
All right.
Whatever.
So you would consider user feedback. User says, no, we prefer the old brackets.
Mm-hmm.
You made them worse. Okay, fair enough. So you don't push live. Okay. Then unreliable data. Cool.
Like if there's bullshit in LPDB.
All right.
I mean, you can try to exclude lower tier stuff because usually the higher tier stuff is better maintained. So the data there is better, or you can just ignore it, or you can try to implement stuff on the wiki side, like on the website, to better check on stuff.
And then you have sometimes missing data.
Yeah, it's basically the same issue, I would say. Like, and you definitely have missing data here and there in a few matches, especially for older pages.
So basically you say, yeah, in this case, we just accept it. It's usually lower tier. Doesn't really matter much. Just show an empty. Yeah,
low tier or old stuff. So.
Or old stuff, yeah. I mean, that's pretty much on point. Like, for example, if I look at this, yeah, I would have written something about like, oh, there's a lot of, different formats. So you can't really, we might not have solutions for all of them, but you're pretty spot on. Break the app low and high severity. It's pretty accurate, yeah. Blame Saleh. I don't know how they'll save it, but yeah.
Always blame Saleh.
Yeah. For example, a couple of changes that I would do maybe here, like I would advise you as you lead, it's like make brackets even worse. So instead of not pushing live if you've made it shitty, what you should do is reduce the risk of this happening by involving the users through the design and development process, right? So maybe like the way Kevin used to do it, right? They would share wireframes and work in progress designs like, hey guys, do you like this? Do you prefer A or B? So once you know what the users prefer, this is how you reduce the risk. Now you're taking a all or nothing approach. Like, yeah, if you don't like it, fuck them, we're just not going to do them. Well, no, but all of your work kind of like went to shit. So you should try to reduce the risk rather than to just completely avoid it and kind of like go, no, we're not going to do it. But otherwise, spot on, okay? And then your next steps, implement optional features. Okay, that's a pretty big next step. This is kind of like almost like a second project. So next steps would be something like do a research on which optional features we should think about. That would be a good thing. Like maybe run a poll, maybe talk to the contributors, maybe do some A/B testing, something like this. Try to make it smaller, because otherwise you go like, oh yeah, next steps is our next project. Yeah, no shit. Of course it is the next project. Okay, good, awesome. Group 2. Let's have you. Who's gonna be the brave guy that presents? Anyone can go. It's not scary. I'm gonna be nice.
You're making them scared.
Good. This is how Liquipedia operates, on fear and.
Oh, I can present.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, give me a second to share the screen. I cannot present.
If you link me, I can present for you, and you can just
yeah.
over me. That's also.
Let me insert the link. Okay, there we go.
There I go. Okay. Group 2 workshop. Oh, you're actually doing Battle Royale. You didn't go for the app. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm. So, well, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. So basically, we want to develop this chart. So the background and the context basically is that The rail needs like a support within the app. So we want to implement this feature to improve the user satisfaction and engagement. So basically, our main objectives are increase traffic on the pages coming through the app and wikis and make it relevant. And yep, and the scopes and the delivery. So the little integration and testing bugs and fixing, basically. We are strongly want to do that. And the cool hubs will be like very real specific match screen. So the essential information for the different players and metrics, So and also dynamic hub screen that we be able to see the large player pools and large play by real gameplay. So the one half will be like not dedicated only social spaces. So that will be in the main app. That will be remaining for the main app. So yeah,
Right.
that will
So
be.
here is let's say as a product lead, I stop you and go like, okay, let's
That's
look
okay.
at your object. I'm sorry?
That's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. So for example, I look at your objectives and you say the primary goal is to improve user satisfaction by adding support. And I'm asking you like, okay, how are you going to measure user satisfaction? How do we know when we've achieved user satisfaction?
Well, from my perspective, the user experience and in the UI,
Sure,
let's say.
sure. But how would you, if I ask you like in 3 months, like, hey, did you guys feel that the project was successful? Show me evidence of this. What are you going to show me to tell me, like, yeah, look at this, we did it or we didn't do it? Are you showing me App Store scores? Are you showing me reviews? Are you showing me Discord feedback or in-app feedback? How are you going to measure user satisfaction?
Well, we can provide some feedback regarding the feature, and based on that, we can improve our application and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Then you say that we will like achieve a user satisfaction with surveys of a certain amount, right?
Mhm.
This is what you kind of want to do. Yep, absolutely fair. And then I go to your scopes and basically like, okay, yeah, this is great. Leaderboard integration, obviously important. Testing and bug fixing, yes, although this goes without saying. Then I'm asking you like, but Bell Real much specific screen, why I could have? Shouldn't this be a must have? If you want to check how a match is going, you can't really reuse the existing pages, can you? So why is that not a must have?
Well, we discussed with the team that will be a cool have, but well, that's pretty much. Yeah, we can put it on the must haves because it has a more impact.
Yeah, maybe again, like there's no right or wrong answer. Maybe here you say, you know what, we will do the matches on a later time because they take a bit more time. And maybe, hey, match pages are not popular in the app. People just do the home and like maybe leaderboards will be enough. All good. But you need to know, you need to be able to answer these questions like, but why is
Mhm.
that not involved? Why is that not explored? I, for example, here like absolutely understand why forums for battle royale players, this is entirely new. Liquipedia doesn't even do this. Like, why would we do it? Of course, won't have. Yeah, makes sense.
Mhm.
Tol, yes, you have a question?
No, I just want to mention that we initially want to put on a must-have, but we didn't want to put too many of them on the first category. So we decided to put on a could-have, and we could
Fair
maybe
enough.
come back to it.
I would say, like, if I was you, like, I would make this indeed the part of the MVP, and then I would exclude testing and bug fixing because that's kind of implied. Of course, you're gonna test your feature somehow, right?
Yeah,
Unless you're like super chat developers that go like, yeah, we're perfect, away you go into production, but it doesn't really happen, right? Okay, good. Sorry, I interrupted you. Who do you need for your team? Stakeholders. What are your stakeholders for the project?
Oh, sorry, I was on mute.
All
Oh
good.
well, no, thanks for the feedback. So the stakeholders of our project will be a project manager, product designer, a backend developer, or and a front end developer. And UI and user experience. Yeah, basically that.
Yep.
We want to do like a real, well, a good feature to the app. So yeah.
Yeah, there was bang on. Like this was our actual team that we did it. Our project manager was Kano, who helped us figure out what battle royales even are, and then designers and devs to actually implement his ideas. So spot on. Okay, milestones. What happens?
Yeah, the milestones, we have these these project phases.
Very good.
Like the kickoff planning and then verify the scopes and objectives, and that will take like 7 days. And dependency is long because it's the beginning of the project. So
In QA, very optimistic, buddy. But I applaud you. 3 days for testing in QA. Sometimes that's all it takes. I'm not gonna lie, but good. Okay.
oh well. Yeah, the feature and the design and prototyping. We want to do like a potential prototyping to deliver in the develop cycle, and then yeah, we implementing the features and like player progression and stuff, and that will take like 15 days. And yeah, the dependency will be like feature design and prototyping. Well, testing in QA, yeah, well, that is not pretty much. It's like testing the features and verify that anything is breaking at the end.
That's actually very accurate to, I think, what we actually did, including your kind of like estimations. I think design took indeed about 3 weeks. I think the core battle features indeed took about like a sprint and a half, maybe 2 sprints. Testing in QA was a bit longer, but you're pretty close to the actual truth of what happens with this feature in reality. So really good. Okay, what are your risks?
So well, the risk will be delays in development. There will be high, medium, high, and we want to ensure that the timelines are completed. So basically, we need to have a agile method like Scrum and stuff. We divide by sprints and stuff. Well, the performance fixtures. So we want to ensure that the app is very optimistic. I mean, optimized app.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much. We need to work on the backend infrastructure and confirm the APIs that work pretty okay. So
Very
yeah,
good. Yeah. I would say especially the performance feature is a risk that you should definitely consider. For example, you say, hey, we're releasing Apex, PUBG, and PUBG Mobile at the same day to all of these interested markets. Like imagine all of India opens PUBG and PUBG Mobile. I mean, it's not realistic, but say it happens. It is a risk. Say, yeah, medium, pretty accurate. Yeah. If a huge flux of users come in, fuck it up. This was actually a risk that we did when we were actually launching the app officially. We did extensive testing to say, can we actually handle all of these users that could potentially come? We got, I think, about 100,000 on day one installs, which is pretty nice. But yeah, we had to ensure that this actually happens. Yep, very good, really nice. I like the breakdown. I'll show you, for example, what how my charter, for example, looks like, which is for the tournament pages, right? Which is my project. So, and I will also basically, it kind of like also uses some of the slides that I mentioned, but here's my context. So bad pages because of A, B, C, and D. These are my objectives. So again, I would really encourage you to spend a bit more time thinking about objectives, to not just repeat the problem. Like you want to achieve something. So, and you need to show success or failure to yourselves as a team, but also to your bosses. If you say, hey, let's make users happy, and somebody asks like, okay, are the users happier now? If you say yes or no, and they will ask you, how do you know that? You should also, like, even if nobody asks you, like from your C levels, you should know as a team whether you achieve success in this, right? And again, you can measure user satisfaction, as I said, in a million other ways. You can measure user retention with tools. You can measure any sort of thing in any sort of way. You just need to to monitor it and know whether you were successful or you were not successful, because these will give you lessons. These are my deliverables, for example, like, okay, you actually see that's quite an extensive MVP. We need to improve the stage grouping in the match ticker. We also need to improve the brackets in the group stage display. So how do you actually open brackets? Not necessarily redesigning them, but axing them. We want to improve the participants list because it was shit, and the prize pools in stream section because, again, they were also shit. In the MVP, I mentioned the MVP awards, but another could have for us was tournament interlinking. So, for example, if a tournament has qualifiers, we list them somewhere. Or if two tournaments are connected in any other way, we list them. Maybe they're part of a series or part of a circuit. Again, we couldn't really figure that out, how to do it smartly in time. So this was what could have, and we actually never worked on it. But now we're actually thinking about doing it. And in one half, besides tournament stats, we didn't want to do pick'ems. We didn't want to do any gamification in the beginning. We just wanted very clean, easy user experience for people who just want to go to the app to get information, not to boggle down with gamification of any kind, which is a project we kind of like started doing later on. Stakeholders basically the same as yours. I need the same developer, a community manager, a designer, and a project manager. And our milestones, very similar to how Group 2 writes it. Wireframe and testing first, then designing, then working on the stage grouping, then implementing the designs, then some beta testing for about 2 weeks, then release it and promote it, and then clean up tournaments, whatever, ongoing project, right? My risk was like, okay, web page setups cause issues. Again, something that happened a lot and it's still happening. Individual player awards mess up participants, which is something we found out, and it's still an issue in the app, by the way. We have weird bracket formats cause messy embeds. Again, happens still, but less often. And another very real thing is like the app stores do not approve it in time, so we can't really meet our deadlines of making it in time for TI. And my next steps are, hey, just some clean. All right, this was our workshop, and so my goal for the workshop, and you can leave this feedback with the form that Elisa will share, is that yes, Joel, sorry.
Just as a note, like you said that 3 days for testing Q&A was ambitious. We initially want to put it on like 1 week, but then I said it is too much, so that's me to blame.
That's okay, right? Sometimes you really need a couple of days of testing. It's really fine. Again, there's no right or wrong answer. If you're releasing a small feature or like a couple of big bug fixes, a couple of days of testing is all fine. But if you're releasing something like, hey, we're releasing three battle royale games with hundreds of tournaments, maybe 3 days is indeed a bit optimistic. As a PO, I would say, hey, maybe allow yourself a bit more time, maybe 2 weeks of testing. It's better to be safe rather than release something fucked up indeed. But yeah, so again, the goal of this project is there's a lot to talk about project management as a whole. And this course, I made it in such a way that it gives you kind of like a fundamental knowledge of what PMs do when they approach something new. And also, let's say tomorrow you get hired as like, let's say a PM intern or like a novice, a manager in Liquipedia, you would not be lost. If I tell you, hey, help me plan this project, initiate this project, you know what I would expect of you. You know what risk mitigation strategy is. You know what milestone mapping is and how it's done. You know what the important questions you should be asking is, and you know what you shouldn't be spending too much time on it. Now, if you want to learn obviously about project management, you can obviously do additional reading or even DM me about like advice if you do actually go into that area of work. Project management is unfortunately not something you can actually teach easily through a book or an article. In fact, the more I read, the more I take this as kind of like ideas of what you can bring to your actual work. Your actual project management techniques and results will really vary based on not just the project, but the people you work in and the company culture and all sorts of things. Do not pick up a book and do not pick up an article and go like, oh yeah, what they mentioned here, I'm going to ad hoc apply to my job. No, try and experiment what works for you and your team and what not. And finally, and you should not keep this in mind, you will fuck up all the time. And this is completely fine. Nobody expects you to manage projects flawlessly, and nobody expects for you to know every single detail and movement that needs to happen in the project. What's most important in project management is that you have an idea and a goal, and you chase it in a certain way, and to not lose sight of the target. Don't, as I said, like just start doing this. Just like people used to ask me, like, how do I get into esports writing and journalism when I was an editor, and the same thing happens now. Like, oh, just start doing it. Doing it will give you experience to get better. I fuck up things all the time in project management, and I've been doing it for 5 years. It will not stop. I will get better at it, but I'll start fucking up in other ways. So don't worry if you, for example, cannot really say, if you say, oh, this will take me 10 days, but it takes me 20. This will happen so often that it stops even being a problem anymore. You need to kind of like, you will get better over time. Your estimations will get better over time. Your planning will get better over time. And in fact, you will know when to plan and when not to plan. So yeah, use this knowledge, apply it as you see fit, try managing some of your projects, see how it goes, and always ask for help. If you're stuck, if you don't know how long something will take or whether it's possible or how complex it is, go and ask your people. The majority of project management, besides answering and asking these kind of like questions, is actually going and talking to people like, hey, can we do this? Can we do that? How long it's going to take us? The PM is the guy that basically talks to everybody and gets everybody on the same page. They do not have, even if they don't have knowledge in a particular field as much as a developer does in development or a designer does in designing, they are kind of like the glue that holds them all together, because they know how to ask the stupid questions, the obvious questions that are not obvious to anyone. This was also one of the lessons that I taught Elisa when she was studying project management. There's no stupid question. If you like you might ask a developer, how long is it difficult to change this to that, and they will say, no, it's a 5-minute job. Why are you even asking? Well, you don't know. There are no stupid questions for a PM. Elisa, you have a...
Yeah, I'm just gonna echo what you just said, is that like the lesson that I learned that it's most valuable is don't make many assumptions, just ask. Because at the beginning I made a bunch of assumptions and I did a bunch of mistakes because of that, but then I learned just ask stuff, go chase people, and
definitely
that was the biggest lesson for me.
And don't be scared of the unknown. Like, don't be scared if you don't know how long something's gonna take or how complex it is. Don't be afraid if even your experts don't know and can't tell. It's just how projects are done, how software development gets done, right? Sometimes you have no fucking idea and you just need to start doing it, and things will get clearer with time.
Yeah.
That's kind of like my final comment. There's a lot more, but like I also cannot really summarize project management in a sentence. So I hope the workshop was helpful. I hope you learned kind of like some basic techniques and exercises that are actually done in Liquipedia. I hope you could actually relate this to the work you contribute into the Liquipedia, which is, by the way, fucking awesome. I love it. And if you end up, like, for example, working in any company as a PM or a product owner or even Liquipedia as such, that will help you, and you will not be, at least at very least, you wouldn't be lost in the source, and you would know where to start.
Awesome.
Any final questions? Any final comments from anybody before we close this up? Because it's been 3.5 hours almost. I don't really want to keep you guys for too long.
Oh, thanks for the workshop.
Oh, very much appreciated the turnout as well. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'll share with you guys a link for feedback if you want to just write something. It's anonymous, so feel free to, write it down, whatever you have to say. We'll have more workshops coming up. Maybe if you really enjoyed this one, maybe Rado can do like a phase 2 with more details. I think you also shared the presentation with a bunch of comments that are a bit more with more details, dive deep a bit on some concepts. But I hope you guys enjoyed, and thanks for staying an hour and a half more. And have a great weekend, everyone. I'll see you on Discord.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Bye.
See ya. Bye-bye.